In this video, we're going to go through setting up an audio project in Davinci Resolve, how to get your files in there, how to do some simple editing, and how to export. So this project is really just designed to get you introduced to the software. I'm not going to go into super heavy on a lot of the details, but I'm going to show you enough of it to get you started. I have a project already set up here. So this is a podcast episode that I worked on a couple years ago with the New Haven Symphony Orchestra in their Listen Up podcast series. On Blackboard is all the download files that you need for this. Click on the link, download that folder. When you uncompress it, you're going to find these files inside of here. So I have some music files. You see there's a folder with music files in it. That's all the material we need for the episode. There's also a folder with recordings. That is the audio that we recorded for the narration. There is a track that we use for the introduction music. There's an outro that has the credits at the end, and then we have the script. So that's all the files we're going to need for it. So I've already opened up Davinci Resolve. So this is just me opening the program. This is your load screen when you get there. If you haven't already, go back and watch a video about setting up your databases in Davinci Resolve, because that does matter. Each one of these lives on a hard drive somewhere, or multiple on the same hard drive maybe. So that's just how your files are stored as far as your database for the project. So it's important to know how that's set up. Make sure you watch that video first. So right now, I'm just going to create a new project. So I'm in the database that I want to use. On the bottom right here, I'll click New Project, and I'm going to call this Anger Episode, because that is the name of the episode. Hit Create, and we're inside Davinci Resolve. On the bottom here, you see a bunch of different editing tabs for different modes. We want to click on Fairlight, which is the audio editing tab. So once we have that open, this is a full-fledged DAW or digital audio workstation. You don't see a lot of stuff in here. First things first, let's get our material in here. On the left side here, this is where my material is going to live. If you don't see this, come up to the top here and click on Media Pool. This toggles that section on and off. You have all these tabs on this side, and on the right side, those can be toggled on and off. So I have my Media Pool open, and I have the master folder view over here that can also be toggled on and off as well. And now I can simply select everything in this folder and click and drag it to this master area, and it's going to retain the folder structure. You can see here's my folders, and when I click on master, here's the stuff that was outside of the folder. All of that comes over here. It did not, of course, copy the script at all, because this is just the audio that's going to import. Now I have it in list view. You might see it by default in this view, or maybe in this view. There's different views. I like lists because I like to see the names. I don't necessarily need to see the audio like that. This is more of a preference thing. If I'm only working with a couple files, I don't mind it this way, but when you start working with a lot of files, I like list view because it's easier to find. There's also a search feature here, so if you have a lot of stuff and you know what it's called, you can just use the search feature. So now that we have everything in there, let's take a look at the script as well. So we're going to open Finder back up. I'm just going to double click on the script here, and here's our script. So it's 4 pages long, and in here, one thing that we don't see the title at the very top here, which you should have, and all that stuff. But this is the script. It's all narration, one person, and then we have these cues for music being put in here. So you can see we have all these cues throughout the script as far as using music and different parts of that music for this podcast. We got my script ready. Now, because I'm doing the video here, I'm using just one screen. Normally I would have it on a second screen, or I'd print it out so it's easier to read. When I do recording this, I actually have it and I mark it up as a record. You can see there's highlighted text later on. That's because we had to do a second recording to fix some of the narration. So that's what that second narration recording is the highlighted text to fix that later on. There is more than one way to create a timeline. You can go up to File, New Timeline, which would bring up this window right here, which you give your timeline a name, tell them how many tracks you want, what kind of tracks they should be. That's one way of doing it. I'm going to do it a different way here, so I'm going to cancel that. I'm just going to go into my recordings here, and I know this is my opening narration. This is my main narration file. I'm going to click and just drag this over here. And you can see when I do that, it automatically creates a timeline. It just named it timeline 1, so I'm going to come back in here and rename that. and also put it in the folder that was in. So if you want to move it around, you can move it to be in the top folder. You can move it wherever you want. Stay organized. If you have a lot of timelines, make a folder, or bin as it's called inside a program, to have all your timelines in. So here's my audio, and just to make it easier for you to see, I'm going to expand this down just so it's a little taller there. Right now I just have the one audio track. We're going to create a second audio track very soon. And within this, we're going to go ahead and find the beginning part. So again, looking back at our narration here, hi there, I'm Caitlin Daly Gonzalez. That's our opening line. Now I'm just going to skip ahead because I know the good take is over here somewhere, and it's about here.
3, 2, 1. Hi there, I'm Caitlin Daly Gonzalez.
So this is where our first good take is. Now you can see, I kind of knew where to go because I can see, I'm going to zoom in here. To zoom in, I'm going to hit Command plus on the keyboard. This is her countdown, 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
So that's really helpful. When you're doing narration, every time you do a new take or a new pickup, do a countdown for yourself. It's going to help you mark it visually looking at your WAV file, but it also helps pace your timing. So if you find yourself getting too fast or too slow, you can stop, center yourself, do a countdown, and you'll be back on pace. So this is where I want to cut in. To make a cut here, I can use this scissor icon right here. This is our razor tool. What's really cool is I don't actually have to bring the tool here. I can just put my playhead on top of it, and my keyboard shortcut, as you see as I hover over it, is Command B. So I'm just going to press Command B, and look, it made a cut. There's my cut there. So I can click on this part. Let me zoom out so you can see the whole thing now. So this is the part that we're going to get rid of on the left, and this is the part where we're going to start editing with. Now on your keyboard, if you're just using your laptop and you hit delete, it's going to leave this blank space. Let me undo that. If I use the other delete on a full-size keyboard, it actually does a ripple delete where, watch that again, when I hit delete, it's going to move everything to the left and clean up that blank space. Or if you don't have a full-size keyboard but you still want to do the ripple delete, you can hold the shift key and hit delete and it'll do the same thing. Otherwise, you'd have to do this and then move it over, which is also another way of doing it. So let's go find about the 15-second mark and zoom in here. I'm just going to move the beginning of this so it's about 15 seconds in. Oops, I zoomed in too far. There we go. So now I want to bring in a music track for my introduction, which is Imaginary Places here. Just going to bring this in. I'm just going to drag it down to the next area below it. You can see, again, I'll just make it taller here. It created a second audio track. Now, before I go further, something I should have started with right away is I want to name these tracks. Once you, especially when you get to bigger projects, you're doing a project where you have multiple interviews, each person should be on their own track, and you should name them so you know where they are. So this first track, I'm going to click where it says Audio 1. I'm just going to type in Narration. And where Audio 2 is, I'm going to click in and type in Music. So now they are named. And you can do that for all your tracks to keep them organized for yourself.
I'm just here to hold your hand when you die and to show you around imaginary place.
Now, take a look at one thing before we go too much further here. And we'll set something up so it's a little easier going down the road here. Look how loud. You can look on the top here on the right over here where our mixer is. Do you see how much in the red that music is? And let's solo our narration track.
Director for the New Haven Symphony Orchestra.
You can see that's barely in the yellow.
Listen up.
So her voice is kind of low, the music is very high, so let's get those closer to each other. So that way we're not fighting each other. We're still have to do fades and all that stuff as well, but let's go ahead and do a track effect that's going to help us out. So here on the right, I have my mixer area. Again, if you don't see this on the top right here, you have my mixer button. I can turn this on and off. And when I have multiples, you can actually pull this in and out. Right now, it's showing just the two, and there's nothing else to show. If I had a third track here, it might be hidden, so you have to pull this in and out just so you can see it. These are volume sliders right here, so you can manipulate the volume for the entire track from right here. I could just pull this up or down. But I don't want to do it that way, because I want to use some smart tools that are really going to help us out. Sometimes I might do this at the end. Sometimes if I know I need to do it, I'm going to do it at the beginning. For you, I probably lay down the stuff first. and figure it out, but I'm just going to show it to you now. So I'm going to do some track effects. Now you can do clip effects and track effects. So a clip effect would be if I click on the actual individual clip and put an effect just on that clip using like the inspector up here, I can actually do things to individual clips as far as EQs and things like that. But that's going to affect one clip at a time. I like to do stuff for the entire track because that way anything I throw in that track is going to fall under that same effect. Right now, let's worry about the vocal track. So I soloed the track, so I'm only going to hear that so you can see.
Symphony Orchestra.
While it's soloed, I'm not hearing the music. Beautiful. Now, I'm going to do two different things to this. I'm going to put an effect on it, and I'm going to do some dynamics to it. So here on the right where I have my mixers, this is audio track 1. Right here where it says effects, I'm going to click on this plus button, go to channel, and choose dialogue processor. And then when I open it up, and let's let it play while I do this.
Lee Gonzalez, Education Director for the New Haven Symphony Orchestra, and you're listening to Listen Up, the podcast series that shows you how to get more.
It's subtle. It does do a change. So I clicked it and I chose female VO because she is a female and it is a little bit more tuned for that kind of voice. So I did that. I'm going to close it. It's still open right here. You can see now I have a dialogue mixer. If I want to change it, I can always click on it and do it again. I could toggle it on and off with this red button here. So if I want to hear what it sounds like without it on. And now I'm also going to come down here to where dynamics is and double click on this. And I'm going to, from the drop down, choose expander. And what this is going to do,
you how to get more out of the music you love. On each episode this season,
if I shut it off real quick, I'm going to shut off
look at how
expander.
Emotions are expressed in music. Today, we're looking at an emotion that everyone experiences from time to time.
So again, it's subtle, but what that's doing is increasing the output of her volume.
The New Haven Symphony Orchestra, and you're listening to Listen Up, the podcast series that shows you how to get more out of the music you love.
So before, we were barely in the yellow, and now we're constantly in the yellow and kissing the red, which is where we want to be. We want to be between that like -15, -16 to -10 or 11 area. You know, that's kind of where we want to be. That's the sweet spot. So now let me unsolo that. I'm going to solo the music track down here. Now you can see this is really loud. Way too loud. So I'm just going to go ahead, double click on dynamics for audio track 2 here, and we're going to put on a limiter and watch the levels now. Now we're peaking at 10, at -10. And that's bringing our audio much more in line to each other. And that's what we want to do. It's kind of an easy way. Put a limiter on one thing. On the other thing, I can put an expander on. We bring them together. So that's one way of doing that. So now when they run into each other, they're not going to be opposing each other. Now I need to create a fade so that way the music starts fading and then underneath her as she's speaking. So the music's still playing while she does the intro. First, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make sure I have this highlighted. I'm going to go a couple seconds in here and Command B to make a cut there and get rid of the rest of that music track. I don't need it. And now when I bring my mouse to the end of that music track, you see I get a little white icon that shows up. And if I bring my mouse over it, I get left and right arrows. I can now click and drag that, and that is a fade. That's creating a fade. You can see actually the audio waveforms decreasing as I bring it over. And now we can hear it.
Hi there.
Now it doesn't fade fast enough. I can change this little circle. I can click on that. I can change the shape of that fade so that maybe it fades out a little sooner.
Hi there.
Maybe bring it like...
Hi there. I'm Caitlin Daly Gonzalez, Education Director for the New Haven Symphony Orchestra, and you're listening to Listen Up, the podcast series that shows you how to get more out of the music you love.
So that's kind of how you do that, right? So let's take a look at that script again, see where we're going. So we have this whole thing right here up until music. That's our out cue before our first music cue.
On each episode this season, we're taking a deeper look at how emotions are expressed in music. Today, we're looking at an emotion that...
So right there, that was it. So that's where I need to bring our first music file in. If I look, so that's the name of the piece from the beginning until we get to the end of this sentence because we have a stop music abruptly, at that point. So on the left here, I'm going to click on music, and here's the piece right here. You'll see up here, boom, look, it's up here in this window. I can listen to it. So again, I can just bring this right down.
How emotions are expressed in music. Today, we're looking at an emotion that everyone experiences from time to time.
Again, if that's a little too loud, I can click on this white line here is my volume line in the track. So I can bring that down just a little bit, just so it's a little under.
Expressed in music. Today, we're looking at an emotion that everyone experiences from time to time.
Because you don't want the music to fight with the dialogue. So maybe a little bit more.
It's a great cleansing emotion that helps us process life.
And now the cue is to stop abruptly, so I'm going to make a cut right there. Oops. So if you don't have a track selected and you hit the cut button, you see what happens? It cut through everything. I didn't want that to happen. Actually, I do want it to happen in this case. But if you only want it to cut through one track, make sure that one's highlighted, and it's only going to cut through that individual piece. See that? But I know I want to cut through all of it because I don't want to use this take of what she's saying. I just know that for a fact because I did this one before. So, oops. Unselect everything. I'm going to cut through both these pieces. We don't need the rest of this, so I can delete that. And we're just going to move that for a second. So it should sound like this.
That helps us process life.
Should be a quick cut. And then we're going to go to an anger. So then it's anger kind of thing later on. And I just know for a fact, helping you cheat here, it's more like
2, 1. It's anger! That was Killswitch Engage's song, Vita Infra. I
was trying to get her to do like a really growly, it's anger, but we got what we got. So let's make a cut there, Command B. And again, I could click on this and Shift D, and I did a rolling edit to where my playhead was. And we just want to move this, so I'm just going to click on the track and bring it right to there.
Helps us process life. It's anger!
And then as soon as that's over, it's anger, we play this piece. So again, now this has a different time code. We're not starting at the very beginning, so we have to do a little in-out maneuvering with that piece. So 230 to 254. So here it is. What I say was 230 to 254. So to change where the endpoint is on this music up here, on the top right here, where you see the numbers at 0000000 right now, click on that, and now you can type in there. So I can go 2:30:. So you have to make sure you do up to that spot because it goes milliseconds, seconds, minutes, hours from right to left. So if I want to do 2 minutes 30 seconds, I have to do 2 minutes 30 seconds 0 milliseconds. So I do that, and then I press return, and it's going to move that playhead there to that spot, and then I can press I on the keyboard to mark an endpoint. And I can come back up here again and type in 2:54:return, and there move the playhead again, hit out from my out point. And now I can drag from this waveform here down to my music track, and I put it in place. And I'm going to make a cut on this track up top right there, move that out of the way, and it should sound like this.
That helps us process life. It's anger!
And because we put that compressor on before, that's at a much more even level for podcasts. If I shut off that dynamics, it would sound like this.
It's anger!
Way too loud for what we need to do for this. Recorded music is recorded a lot louder level than broadcast audio. And then we're going to come, now the next part is, she does this little part right here. And so we just heard a second ago, she does it here.
That was Killswitch Engage. Killswitch.
She does it again. So again, I could make a cut here, but I'm going to show you a different way because I only have to get rid of a little bit. If you bring your mouse to the edge of a clip, you can do a nice little edit this way. Because remember, this is digital, so it's non-destructive. On the left here in the gray, it's showing you what you could add back in, but I want to take away down to here. And then move this over. Now, when you're doing your first edit, don't be so precise. You can be a little rough, and you're going to come through again and do a lot of touch-ups. So I'm just kind of roughing it out.
That was kill switch engages.
Now, I don't like abrupt stops. I always like to put a little fade on it. Maybe overlay her just slightly.
That was Kill Switch Engage's song,
Sounds a little more
Vita
pleasant.
Infra, off of their self-titled 2000 album. Unless you knew those lyrics before I pushed the play button.
We're about to make a cut here because we have a long discussion about how to say contemplative or contemplative, and we do a retake. So I'm going to cut it right here.
Quality.
When you listen to it, you'll know that's when it happens. And again, if you were the engineer recording it, you'd be marking this up in your script so you know where the retake is. You write down the time cue so you can just go to it. So I'm going to hit Command B here. We're going to fast forward here on the timeline.
Tomato.
Turns out those...
That's the pickup right there. So again, give it a little room. Command B. Click here. Shift delete. And did that little ripple delete for us. And now...
True equality. Turns out those lyrics aren't really angry,
sounds
but
like
kind
nothing
of
happened at all.
quality. Turns out those lyrics aren't really angry, but kind of contemplative. Quality. Turns out those lyrics aren't really angry.
So then we have up until we get to Alanis Morissette, Met an Ex-Boyfriend before we have our next edit.
But kind of contemplative. Alanis Morissette, mad at an ex-boyfriend.
So let's do this process again. So we're going to, right here, we're going to cut it. So Command B. I'm just going to give it some space here. So I'm just moving that over because I know I'm dropping a piece of music down here in the second timeline. And so that's Alanis at 102 to 115. So here it is. Alanis is on the left. Alanis. Click on the top right. 1:02 colon return. I for in. Then click on it again. 1:15 return. O for out. Then drag it down to here. We're going to cinch this up a little bit. Bring this over. And now without any edits, let's see how it sounds.
Boyfriend. Tracy.
So I always like to check the ins and outs real quick. And I can hear it's a little abrupt.
Next boyfriend.
And that's why I like to come in, zoom in a little bit, just put this ever so slight fade.
Friend.
Same thing at the end here. Ever so slight. It's like half a second. And let the audio overlay just a little bit.
Tracy Bonham.
And actually, I want to get out before that next little bump. So I'm going to bring this back even more. Just because when you deal with music, you don't want to hear the next phase start if you're going to get rid of it.
Tracy Bonham, mad at her mother.
We'll do it one more time just to show you how it goes again. Repetition is how you learn. So again, we'll look at the script. Tracy Bonham, mother, 106 to 128. So click on mother over here. Click on the time, 1:06 return. I for in. Click on it again, 1:28 return. O for out. Bring it down. And now you kind of should already know what to do. A little fade, maybe crossfade it a little bit. Come over here to the end. Move this over. A little crossfade. And then come check my edits.
Mother. And Black Flag.
So that's kind of how you do it. And that's what I do for the entire thing. Now, when I talk about voices, the narration, I'm just cutting it up to take out all the bad things and just keep the good takes in. So you might find in the narration that there's multiple takes of the same sentence because we had to redo it. Or we had a mispronunciation or something like that. And we have to redo that. But it's one continuous take that we did. We record it as once. And when you do your narration, you'll do the same thing. Record constantly cut afterwards. Don't stop and start your recording. Just let it record. Keep everything in there. It's easy to edit afterwards. So you're going to go through and you're going to finish this whole script. It's 4 pages. It's only a 15-ish minute podcast. You can listen on the website. I have the link to the website on Blackboard to what the final version that we produce sounds like, and see how close you can get to that. Again, this exercise is really just about you getting comfortable doing stuff within Davinci Resolve as far as audio editing. Bring audio files in, moving them around, clipping and cutting, and do that repetition in here. We showed you a little bit of the dynamics here. There's also EQs you can play with on the right side. We didn't really talk about EQs that much yet, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of effects you could explore and play with. There's so much to go over in here. This is, like I said, the very basic of the introduction to this program. So once you're finished, the next thing to do is export. And we do that down here. The last thing is the delivery tab with the rocket ship. Click on that. And this is where you choose your settings for exporting your project. Now, on the top left here, we have the name. So you give it the name, Anger. And what I want you to do is call it Anger and then put a hyphen and then put your last name in. So that way, when I'm listening to files I download on my computer, I know whose file is whose. It's a good habit to get into to take your projects, name it with the title and then your name on it. So that way, when you hand it off to somebody, they know who made this and what it is. Don't just name it Project 1, Story 2. Name it the title of the project. So if you're doing a profile about somebody, name it the person, profile on so-and-so, and then hyphen your name. So that way we always know who it belongs to. Then choose a location for where you want to save it. And then down here, uncheck this export video because we're not doing video, we're just doing audio. So make sure you uncheck that. Click on the audio tab and then change your format to MP3 and leave everything else as it is. On the bottom here, hit add to render queue. On the top right, you'll see now it is added in the queue. And once you're ready, hit render all. This is designed so that you could render multiple timelines at once and then hit render all and walk away and do a bunch of them. But once you're done, hit the render button. It's going to render your project to the folder that you told it to, and you can upload that to Blackboard. And that's your basic overview of how to use Davinci. As we build up other projects, you're going to get more in depth with how to do it once you start doing some more in-depth story editing. So that's it for this video. Take your time with it, have fun with it.